I hear people say Jacksonville already peaked. And every time I hear it, I shake my head like, you missed it. Prices ran, people moved, party's over. Not this time. That's the lazy read. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The hype phase was the warm-up. The next decade is where cities either fall apart or quietly win. And Jacksonville is built for the second one. No fireworks, no hype tour, just a city that still works when you wake up and your entire day isn't dictated by traffic on I-95 or I-295. Your commute still makes sense. Dinner plans don't feel like logistics problems. Weekends don't start with stress, whether you're staying inland or heading towards the beaches. And if you've ever driven around here thinking, wait, why does this still feel so easy? Yeah, that's not by accident. The better question is the one nobody's asking. Why does this city still work when so many others don't? And why the next 10 years matter more than the last? I'll be frank with you. Jacksonville didn't click for me right away. At first, it just felt big, spread out, hard to read. But after actually living here, not visiting, not skimming the surface, I started catching things visitors never notice. Not the highlight reel, the mechanics. How mornings don't start in gridlock. How you instinctively time your day around bridge traffic instead of planning your life around chaos. How there's space in the day to breathe instead of just react. That's when it all finally clicked. Jacksonville doesn't reward hype chasers. It rewards people who already know how they want their life to feel. People who value rhythm over rush, function over flash. And once you see that, the city stops feeling random and starts feeling very deliberate. And that matters for one reason. When a city shaped by the St. Johns River starts attracting people who think that way, that's not coincidence. The people choosing Jacksonville now aren't chasing Florida hype. They're choosing a system that works. And that shift is the first real reason this city is set up to thrive over the next 10 years. This is where the narrative goes sideways. They think the wave already hit Jacksonville. That big move-in moment is over. But what actually changed isn't the number of people coming here, it's the type of people. The frenzy has cooled off, and what replaced it is way more interesting. This isn't impulse migration anymore. It's intentional migration. Jacksonville is still growing faster than the national average, adding thousands of new residents every year. But the panic has left the room. That's when things get healthier. I see it every week. We'll sit down with someone who didn't wake up one morning and randomly pick the Jacksonville metro area. They've already lived somewhere louder, tighter, more compressed, where mornings start with horns and tension and evenings feel like a second shift just to get home. People aren't chasing status cities anymore. They're chasing livability. They want space, but without isolation. Access without chaos. A place where you can actually use the laptop, step outside, and feel your shoulders drop instead of bracing for the next thing. Jacksonville hits that balance. You can work hard here, no doubt, but your life doesn't feel like a constant negotiation with traffic, crowds, or time. People here instinctively plan around bridge timing or river crossings, not all-day gridlock. And that rhythm matters more than most people realize. And here's the part people don't talk about enough. When migration becomes intentional, it's stickier. These aren't people passing through. These are families setting up routines, professionals building long-term plans, and locals across Northeast Florida doubling down instead of cashing out. That kind of migration smooths the city out. It doesn't whiplash it, especially in places where the cost of living sits meaningfully below other Florida metros, like South Florida or Tampa. If you're even thinking about moving to Jacksonville or repositioning where you live here, this is the moment to get the real guidance. We're the local Jacksonville real estate team of choice, and we help people figure out where they actually fit before they make a move. You can call us, text us, or email us. Everything's in the description. Growth hits cities in different ways. In some places, it shows up as compression. Narrower margins, louder days, everything stacked on top of everything else. In Jacksonville, growth shows up differently. It spreads, it distributes, it leaves room for people to live without feeling squeezed. That has everything to do with scale. Jacksonville covers more than 840 square miles, making it the largest city by land area in the continental US. And that size changes the math completely. When growth is spread across that much ground and backed by billions already allocated to roadway, bridge, and freight infrastructure through the 2030s, pressure doesn't slam into one downtown core. It diffuses diffuses across corridors, neighborhoods, and edges. Growth here doesn't arrive as a shockwave. It shows up in layers. You notice it without looking for it. Traffic exists, but it's situational. The Buckman Bridge slows at predictable windows. The Fuller Warrant stacks up, then clears. Certain stretches of I-295 tighten, then breathe again. It's not the constraint, all-day gridlock that defines tighter metros. Locals adjust a few habits, learn to flow, and keep moving. That predictability protects quality of life even as the city expands. This throws people off at first. Character survives alongside expansion. Growth hasn't flattened everything into the same vibe. The south side still moves differently than the north side. Some areas stay quiet in residential. Others feel energized. A few are clearly mid-transition. Expansion here adds options instead of erasing identity. Quick pulse check. Drop in the comments what matters more to you right now. Is it space, walkability, or convenience? That single answer usually points to a completely different version of Jacksonville. Jacksonville's economy doesn't spike, it flexes. That's the difference. Cities that live and die by one industry feel great on the way up and brutal on the way down. Jacksonville doesn't play that game. The job market here is spread out on purpose, and that balance is why it holds up when things get weird nationally. You've got logistics anchored by the port and rail, healthcare anchored by massive systems that don't pack up and leave, finance, insurance, fintech, defense, construction, aviation, and a growing remote workforce layered on top. No single sector gets to run the show. Look at how the city actually functions day to day. Cargo moves through Jacksport, which ranks among the top vehicle holding ports in the country. Even when markets slow, trains still roll through CSX yards on schedule. Early mornings around Mayo Clinic start with shift changes, headlights filling the parking decks before sunrise. Down near Naval Station Mayport, tens of thousands of military and civilian jobs stay steady regardless of what tech stocks are doing. That mix creates economic shock absorbers most cities don't have, and the data supports it. Jacksonville's workforce is spread across multiple major sectors, with no single industry accounting for more than roughly 20% of the total employment. You feel this stability in everyday conversations. People aren't constantly asking, what happens if my industry dries up? They're asking, how do I position myself better inside the city? Most people don't think about infrastructure until it starts stealing time from their day. Traffic stretches errand, flights stack up, simple routines turn heavier than they should. The quiet advantage is this: a lot of the work is happening before those problems become unavoidable. That's been the approach across Jacksonville for years. Not headline projects, not flashy announcements, slow, deliberate upgrades meant to keep the city functioning as everything else scales around it. That's the strategy. You see it in the framework first. Corridors like I-95, I-10, and I-295 haven't been treated as emergencies. They've been rebuilt with time horizons measured in decades. More than $10 billion in state and federal funding is already allocated across Northeast Florida roadway, bridges, and freight projects through the mid-2030s. The Buckman Bridge and the Fuller Warren are no longer just traffic pinch points. They're resilience projects. Downtown mobility is evolving the same measured way. The UTC program isn't built on hype. It's phased. Downtown, the sports district, Riverside, Brooklyn, connected gradually, not promised overnight. Skepticism is fair, but the logic is sound. Reduce friction where density is increasing without pretending this suddenly becomes a rail-first city. It's transit shaped around how people actually move here. Air travel follows the same playbook. Jacksonville International Airport is in the middle of a roughly $440 million expansion, adding a new concourse, additional gates, better roadway access, and expands cargo capacity. The focus isn't dominance, it's throughput and experience that match population growth instead of chasing headlines. None of this announces itself day to day. That's intentional. Quick check-in. Drop in the comments what you notice first when infrastructure slips. Is it traffic, airport delays, or everyday errands taking longer than they should? Affordability in Jacksonville only makes sense once you stop chasing averages and start looking at choices. This city doesn't hand you one lifestyle at one price. It gives you options and makes you decide what actually matters. The baseline numbers still hold. Jacksonville's overall cost of living sits roughly 8 to 10% below the national average. The housing about 15 to 20% lower than most major US metros. Median home prices land in the high 200s to the low 300,000s, depending on the neighborhood and the data source. That's not marketing, That's math. But the real value shows up in how those numbers translate into daily life. Grab coffee in Riverside, walk under oak canopies, hear bikes roll past on Park Street, and you're paying for proximity and character. Slide south toward Mandarin or the south side, trade walkability for space, and that same monthly budget buys a backyard, a garage, and quieter mornings. Push 10 minutes farther north or west and entry prices dip under $200,000. The upside is flexibility. You aren't locked into one version of success. You can live near nightlife, near water, near schools, or far enough out that quiet becomes the feature. At this point, the question isn't whether Jacksonville is moving in the right direction. That's already in motion. The real question is quieter and more personal. It's whether the version of this city taking shape lines up with the way you actually want to live. Jacksonville doesn't push everyone into the same lane. It gives you room to choose. Over 80% of the city's land area is suburban or semi-rural, which is why daily life can feel completely different depending on where you land. You can wake up near the river in San Marco, walk shaded streets, and move at a slower pace where mornings don't feel rushed. You can settle into Bartram Park or Oakleaf, where weekends revolve around kids' games, grocery runs, and backyard grills. Or you can head out to the west side or north side, where space matters more than proximity and the night sky still shows up if you look for it. That range of options is the advantage. Growth here isn't forcing everyone toward the same outcome. It's widening the range of outcomes. While other cities compress lifestyles and price people into smaller boxes, Jacksonville keeps expanding sideways. More choices, more tolerance for different rhythms of life. So I want to hear from you. What kind of daily life are you actually trying to build right now? Is it space, walkability, quiet, energy, flexibility, or maybe something in between? That answer will tell you more than any ranking ever could. Comment on lifestyle you're chasing right below and do it now. Be honest. That answer matters more than you think. Jacksonville doesn't punish timing. It punishes confusion. People don't get burned here because they waited. They get burned because they moved without knowing what they actually wanted. That theme runs through this entire conversation. The city works when your priorities are clear. How you live, where you land, what trade-offs you're willing to make. Guessing turns into wasted money, wasted time, and sometimes a second move you didn't plan for. That's the reason our team exists. We're the local Jacksonville, Florida real estate team of choice. And our job isn't to push decisions, it's to help you think clearly before you make one. If you're buying, selling, relocating, or anywhere in the Jacksonville metro area to include Nocatee, Silverleaf, or any of the Jacksonville neighborhoods, our info is in the description. You can call us, text us, or email us whenever it makes sense, and we'll talk it through like people who actually know this city. If you're still getting orientated, queue up one of our playlists. It's a straight breakdown of neighborhoods, lifestyle, and real trade-offs so you can stop guessing and start narrowing things down. Thanks for spending time with me. I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.